so I've invited Meredith and Stacy to help lead this discussion because they are expert in homelessness. And I don't know a whole lot about it. My first experience, though, was helping Meredith with one of her clients. And this particular client was well-educated, had a few degrees. I think she had a doctorate as well. And then she lost everything. And I thought, oh, well, that could be me. So, I think that homelessness is kind of a thing that we don't think can happen to us, and it so easily could. And so that's why I thought it was a good topic. It hit me really close, and been working with these two gals on a couple of things, and that's why I invited them over. So I had Meredith Spriggs. I called her in, I don't know, May or something, and asked her about, hello, welcome, come on in, have a seat. Asked her about homelessness. I read something that somebody had written an article about her, and so we got to talking. I followed her around a little bit, and so that was interesting for me, getting outside my box a little bit. And then Stacy, I guess we met kind of through Meredith to talk about, how you transition from one side of life to the other side of life, and yeah, we've had some conversations. I'm so much that I am not comfortable with, but it did be really good, really good. And Stacy's with Nevada Homeless Alliance. I always get those two mixed up. Sorry. So what I want to talk about with everyone is generally homelessness, and then also maybe we'll touch on kids a little bit. We'll touch on how you become homeless, why you're homeless, those kinds of things. As they're talking, I really would like you to also engage with them at the same time. This is not a presentation. This is the kind of thing where I talk, you talk, and we get to share information so we all walk away learning something. So with that, you guys want to start talking a little bit? Who's feeling brave?
I would say, can we go around? In my ideal world, this conversation would have two results, is that we would all come away with a better understanding of the issue of homelessness, and we would have some takeaways of what we can do next steps on how we can help our community around homelessness. So I wanted to start out and give you a few stats. Every year in January, the last week of January, Southern Nevada conducts a census of how many people are sleeping on the streets and in shelters. According to the definition of provided by HUD, homelessness can only include people on the streets, in shelters, or fleeing domestic violence situations. So legally, we cannot count people sleeping on couches or in weeklies or converting garages that they're renting. That does not count as homelessness according to HUD. That counts for the school district. So according to our last census numbers, on any given night in Southern Nevada, we have 7,509 people sleeping on the streets. And this year we're expected to see over 35,000 people experience homelessness, by that definition, sometime during the course of the year. The school district, by the Department of Education, is allowed to include all those families that are doubled up, 8 people in studio, weeklies. So by their definition, we had over 11,000 kids in our school district last year reported as homeless, which kind of gives you the hard numbers of the street homelessness and also the number of families that we're seeing that are really having that struggle. We've been working to try and pull together a lot of different service activities for years to see those numbers decrease. We have seen some fluctuations in the number overall. In the last 4 years, we've seen an overall decrease, but we did see some years where we saw 30% drop and then we went back up. So our next census is going to be the last week of January 2016, and hopefully those numbers will show a decrease. We have been under a federal mandate to work on ending veteran homelessness, and we were charged with ending veteran homelessness by the end of this year. And I'm really proud of our community. I'm really proud to be part of our community. We've been, our goal number in order to end veteran homelessness would be to house 110 veterans a month. And thanks to all the combined outreach efforts and shelter efforts and housing program efforts, we've been housing between around 120 and 140 veterans a month for the year on average. So I would be looking, in your newspapers, because hopefully they're going to be making an announcement in the next few months that we have ended veteran homelessness in our community.
I'm going to interrupt you for a second, because I know some people will probably hear that and think, yeah, right, I still see homeless people. So this is important to know that there's a thing you're going to see communities that have announced that they've ended homelessness or that they've ended veterans homelessness specifically. Functional zero is what they reference. And so the idea of functional zero is that we know there are always going to be some people that are homeless, but we know who those people are, we know them by name, we know where they're at, and if they choose tomorrow to go indoors, we have the resources to house them. So it's really getting a handle on knowing who is in your streets and then what housing stock you have.
So yeah, the idea that behind functional zero is that if somebody wants a bed, it's there. So that doesn't mean that we're forcing them into a bed and we can say there's no homeless veterans, but if a veteran is on the street and wants a bed, we'll have one available. We have been tasked with ending chronic homelessness, which is long-term homelessness, by the end of 2017, so that will be our next goal. I know. And then we're looking at trying to end family and youth homelessness by the end of 2020. So the federal government is using a lot of their departmental funds across, HUD, VA, Health and Human Services. They're all starting to look at how do we come together as federal agencies, state agencies, local agencies, nonprofits, how do we come together?
So part of what we've been working on is this federal initiative that Stacy mentioned. It's called the 25 Cities Initiative. And what I tell everybody is that before, everybody wasn't necessarily playing nice. The federal government has said, no, if you don't get this and you don't meet these goals, we're going to pull your funding. So that gets a lot of people's attention. But they didn't just slap everybody on the wrist. What they've done is provide support and mentorship, and that initiative is the 25 Cities Initiative. So they've given us support at the federal level, but then we also have kind of collaboration where we come together as the top 25 largest populations of homelessness. So all of us come together. We just had a convening in LA where we can kind of pick each other's brains and say what's working for you, what's not working for you, and get ideas from each other. So that's really great. We even do like a weekly call and powwow. And then our community has divvied up into several groups that we've decided this is how we're going to break down what we're doing. So we have one group that's outreach, which I'm the lead of. We have a shelter group. We have coordinated intake, which is they help actually move people into housing, and then we have a leadership group, which is working on policy change and different things like that. But before I bore everybody, I want to do something really quick. Forgive me if you've seen this exercise before and you've heard me talk. But people talk all the time about mental illness, or I hear all the time, well, why doesn't that person just do this? We had a lady right now that she has an abscess tooth and it's getting bigger, the little side of her face is swollen. Got her housing, said we'll get you emergency housing and myself and help us in Nevada. Metro's been working with her, West Care's been working with her. She doesn't have a substance use issue, but everybody's offered her thing. We actually had her in the vehicle yesterday 2 times that she hopped out of our vehicle and helped us in Nevada's vehicle, and she's back out on the streets with a giant abscess tooth, and she called it crying, but still doesn't want help with anyone here. So people say, well, why don't you just take it? Why don't you just do it? Well, there's a whole lot of other issues going on with mental illness that it's just not possible. They just can't. So we're going to do an exercise really quick. So everybody take your paper, roll it up, look funnel like you used to do when you yell in your front ears. Like I said, you've already done this, sorry. Okay, make sure you're by other people, because what you're going to do, so paper go to your right first. Okay, does everybody have a partner? Yes. Okay. All right. So here's what we're going to do. I'm going to count to 3, and when I count to 3, the person holding the paper, so the person on the left should be holding the paper, and you're going to put it up to their ear and start talking. You can say whatever you want, you can make crazy noises, whatever, and then when I tell you to stop, stop, okay? So, get ready. 1.
We're talking into this paper?
Into their ear. Oh, the person on the right.
Oh, okay.
Okay.
It's talking in your ear.
Get ready. 1,
This here doesn't work.
2, 3, go. Okay, stop. Stop. Okay. Who talking.
I heard you say 1, 2, 3.
Anybody hear it? Okay, now you're gonna switch. Okay. Switch, go the other way. Okay, ready? 1, 2, 3. Okay, you guys that are listening, what'd you guys hear? Were you talking? Yes. Okay, so what I was saying is, my name is Meredith.
The loudest voice in our head.
My name is Meredith. I said, I'm going to tell you how to get housing. All you have to do is listen to me and follow the simple instructions and count to 3. 1, 2. What did you guys think? I want feedback. What was that like for you guys?
It was interesting. It was hearing what she had to say and then listening to you. You know, I heard you say stop at the end, but you hear that other person talking to you when you're actually listening to somebody else. You hear somebody else talking to you. You get to listen.
I didn't even hear you talking. No.
I didn't.
Story about Molly.
She's a Jack Russell Chihuahua.
Anybody else? What do you think are here?
I heard one person, and my neighbor.
Yeah.
I focused out everything else.
I was trying to pay attention, but the volume was to a point that, you know, the distraction was here and I couldn't hear what you were saying. I could see your lips moving, and passion, but there was no words that were comprehended.
Yeah.
With half the room speaking, it was really loud.
Yeah. So that was kind of to try and get you guys to feel a little bit like, obviously that's not what mental illness and voice are like exactly, but to kind of simulate what that's like for people. And so when people say, why can't they just? Well, there's a whole lot going on in here for somebody that isn't on their meds, and it's really hard to focus, and it's really hard to decipher what to do and follow really simple instructions that might be easy for you or I, but not so easy when you have all that going on. So that's just what I wanted to get across to you guys. What are some other reasons? We know mental illness is like the big elephant in the room. What are you going to say, John?
Addiction.
Addiction. I was going to ask you.
It's hard to get somebody to stay anywhere when all they can think about is that, you know, next hit or drink or whatever it is. And like all these people, these homeless people, they go right down to where I'm at because people come out of the clubs at night and they leave a little bit of beer or a little bit of a drink somewhere, and they'll go in the trash and get that out, and they're just drinking, or they're picking up the buds to smoke, and that feeds their addiction. And then they're just, they can't think of anything else. How are they going to hold a job? If they get a job, they can't smoke enough or drink enough or do the drugs that they can to keep the job down. So the street is the only answer for them, and they're going to keep following that drug, that addiction, until they get it or they pass out right there on the street. And I see it over and over again down there in the middle of everything here in Las Vegas. You know.
I'd like to say also it's got to do with like what similar to what he's saying is the fact that trying to survive, not just do drugs and find cigarettes, but just trying to survive. There's people, all they do is, oh, we're going to go here and eat tomorrow morning, and then we go over to this church and we eat dinner, and then and then tomorrow we go to this church, and they're so caught up into just eating, you know, that they, you know, and then when you try to go to some office saying, why won't these people, try and go to one of them offices and just see what happens to you. When you go there and you ask for help, and you're sitting here, and then you call back, and they don't even know your name. It's like, I gave you my name. You know, am I going to get Section 8? What's going on here? You know, and try and do that and see what happens. You know, and then like you were saying, like, why don't people want help? There was a friend of mine in Florida, we call him Shaky. He drank a lot of beer, but he had a wife, kids, had a good job, had the house, had 2 cars, had everything. His wife divorced and took everything. He said, I'm not doing it again. Yeah, I'm just not gonna do it. I said, come on, Shaky, you can go make money, man. I used to go and see him downtown in Melbourne, and we used to go to this one little bar, get hot dogs and a couple of beers, and I'd always make sure he had some hot dogs, and he'd go, hey man, I got a new box. I'm like, Shaky, come on, man, you know, you're smart. Come on, go get another job. Nope, ain't gonna do it. And that was it. That was his life now.
So,
And like you're saying, you know, you can't recognize people. There's a friend of mine at the Stratosphere. He was a college professor. And then he was a coach, rather. He was a coach. He taught, but he was a coach for a college football team, and he played a little college ball, and that's how he got to be a coach. But yeah, no, he's over here. He won't tell his family or anything. He's waiting for something to come down with him and his son, and he won't tell anybody. But he's out on the street, and he won't tell his family or anything. His wife left him, and he's hanging out at the racing sports book, and we'll go in dumpsters and eat, and you know. And I'm like, what are you doing, man? You're a smart guy. What are you doing?
addiction, I'm gonna say, sorry, addiction,
Red tape,
mental illness
bureaucracy.
are some reasons for
Loss of
homelessness. Loss of income. Maya, what were you gonna say?
To me, I deal with like a lot of people being too proud to ask for help. So like for instance, my sister, when she was, we were in high school, I was working at Target, she got a job working at another Target store. Her grades started failing. So me and my mom told her, you need to quit your job because now your grades are dropping. Once you graduate high school, you can get a job. She didn't like that because she felt like me and my mom giving her money for food and for clothes that she was taking from us, and we're working hard for us, and she just felt too proud. So she ended up running away, met this guy, she started prostituting her body because we didn't want her to get a job, but she wanted to make her own money. You know, now she's going around and she's being trespassed from every single casino. She's got, you know, all this stuff and just going around couch surfing, prostituting to make money. The same thing, kind of issue I'm having with my mom right now is she's in the dump, she's trying to get help, you know what I'm saying, but she doesn't want to ask for help. You know, she realizes she doesn't have enough money for rent, so she goes out and takes out payday loans, where she gambles her money away trying to make that extra money, instead of just simply coming to us and her kids and asking, you know, can I get $20 here or $40 there? And now, actually today, she just got an eviction notice on her door because she doesn't have the money to pay rent, but she's so far in adults where she needs thousands of dollars for help. Now, we don't have that money, I don't have thousands of dollars to give you, you know, so now she's on the verge of just, you know, her registration got suspended, you know, she's about to lose her car, everything, she's so proud of that.
I think one of the things that you brought up was a really good point. When I was in school, they did a homeless simulation for our class, and it was really interesting, and I've never figured out how to recreate it. But imagine, you know, you have a job interview, you have the time that they do the feedings, the Catholic Charities, you have the shelter line open, you have a 24-hour bus pass, and you don't have an ID, so you're trying to figure out how to get your ID, get across town, get back for food, make sure that you're in the shelter line on time, and just in the, you know, like, it becomes very confusing very quickly. I've always wondered, you know, what would I do if I was homeless, and I always figured I would work the system, and then when I got involved in the system, I'm like, I have no idea how to work the system, you know?
Work you.
Yeah, it would. I mean, it really would, because, you know, you can't get housed, you know, it's hard to get a job without an ID. You can't get housing without an ID. You can't get an ID without a social security card and birth certificate, but you can't get those without the ID. And so you get this super runaround, and then you have to add in making sure that you're getting to the shelter on time, or making sure that you're getting your meals on time, and making sure that your 24-hour bus pass that you had didn't expire, and where, you know, so I think that you brought up a really good point in all the challenges that people have to navigate that the rest of us don't really think about. You think about a homeless person and you think of a stereotype of this person's mentally ill, they're on drugs, they're lazy, you know, like people stereotype homeless so poorly, and they don't realize the struggle that they're actually experiencing, and I think that's a really good point.
Yeah, it's like the guy that's up here, he's, you'll see him at the bus stop, right next to SLS, on the Sahara side there, and now he's got a wheelchair, now he's going for some help, but he drinks a lot of beer, and it's like, come on, man, what are you doing? I think his name's Brian. We call him Scooter. Scooters, but he's a great guy. He's a great guy, and he had made a lot of money. Him and his brother had a business going. They were making a lot of money. Excuse me. And his brother killed himself, I think it was. Committed suicide. I know he died. His brother died. I think he. But anyway, now he doesn't want to do anything. It's like, come on, man, you're smart. Come on. Let's do something. Let's get, go to the library, work online. I'll go with you. And nope, you don't want to do it.
And then, excuse me, and then there's a lot of people that have been out there, had experiences with living down on Skid Row in LA. That's the experience. And living here and talking to people, there has been some people that, in my line of work, when I try to help them along and doing what they need to take care of their own mental self, I have talked to people that have been out on the streets for 9 years, have gotten so used to being out onto the streets, they don't want to go back inside anymore. They know how to do things. It's hard for them to do.
Time Out of Mind is a new movie out right now that Richard Gere is in that actually deals with that exact thing.
We had one lady who said that she was homeless for 20 years and she got housed, but she had to sleep every night with the window open next to, no matter how cold it was, because she was so used to having the fresh air on her face that she would get claustrophobic in her home if she didn't have that window open. If it was 30 degrees outside, or if it was 110 degrees, she'd still have that window open so she could have that air on her face.
Excuse me a minute. When I first came in, I've been in out of the streets now for almost 2 years, thank you God. When I first 2 years ago came off the streets into a motel room, I could not stay in that motel room for more than a couple hours at a time because I've been so used to being outside in the cool air. And it was hard to sleep, having to have that fresh air, and you need it. And there's just some people that are like that. They just don't want to do the adjustment today. And I know Scooter, yes, I think his name is Brian, but he's a good guy. He got hurt really, really bad. I sit over there, and then there's Sarah, and there's, I know almost all of them because we all.
Yeah, because his brother.
It's a group of people that we all know. All the people know everybody else, and all their situations, and try to help them. There's only so much help that you can send them to get help.
I'd like to make a suggestion of something we could do right now that would be very positive. My experience with the Casa de Luz and being unemployed for a while and concerns in comedy. First, I'd like to say that a lesson that taught me is that comedy caters to the subconscious. Political correctness is the collective consciousness as to what we're supposed to be doing right now in the conscious. But prayer invokes the superconscious. The superconscious I would call the Holy Spirit. And if we all right now take on a Christ consciousness, that's a connection to the superconsciousness or the Holy Spirit. That possibly we can bring in the superconsciousness to help ourselves as well as all those people in need all around our city, our state, our country, and the world. So everybody right now, just maybe close your eyes and ask the Lord God Almighty He'd help ourselves, our families, our community, our city, state, the nation, and the world. We ask you humbly, in the name of your Son, Jesus, please come in and help all the hurting in the world. Amen.
Yeah, like she said, I think I figured it out, okay? But surprising it is, when I'm at the place, I'll go in the backyard and trash out, okay? Because I'm so used to it. Or late at night, 2 o'clock in the morning, I'm on riding my bike, and I talk to a lot of people out there. And one thing I understand is that a lot of people ask why they're out there, okay? Shelters are right, but a lot of them needs some kind of form of identification. Las Vegas, because I'm out there every night talking to these people, majority of the people are homeless, okay, are from other states, okay? A lot, and maybe a third of them are wanted from other states. Nevada is known, especially Vegas, It's a safe haven for people that has trouble. Okay. Officers, there's some officers here, they are bad. Now, I can't call them bad, but if they find out, they'll lock you up. Okay. But there are a lot of them out there that will tell you, you know what? I understand the situation. If you lie to me, stay out of trouble. I'm not going to have you. Okay. Because I was one of them like that before I got my stuff taken care of. So, the statistics, Christmas, New Year's, you're going to pick up. The reason why is because it's thing here, okay? I came to Vegas because I watched TV. It says, what happened in Vegas stays in Vegas. What's happening? So I came here, lost my stuff. But in these 2 months, you're gonna pick up a lot of them, okay? Because they're gonna come up, because the bus ride tickets, they're about maybe 25 just to get you from LA at least, okay? And you're gonna be paddling in, and they're gonna have fun. The next thing you know what, you don't got no more money, and they're gonna start sleeping out there. Shelters, I like shelters, okay? But the main problem I hear from them is some of these shelters, I'm not gonna say names, that the volunteers are there working are volunteers. And when there's an altercation inside these shelters, okay, a fight, a lot of these volunteers that work there just want to get involved is because they don't know what these homeless have, what kind of disease they have disease. So all they do is report it by that time it's over. The blankets, the mattresses, they're fresh. They wash them, okay, but not thoroughly on them. Okay. And that's one of the reasons why I stopped going there, because I was getting bitten. And hospital, a lot of times they'll say, well, you got any insurance or any money and all that. You say no, it's all right, just take this and you're on your own. And responsibility. Places that feed us, okay? Shelters, churches, they feed us, okay? That takes a lot of responsibilities. A lot of people's homeless. Because a lot of the fact that, because me, at first, I had chances to have a place to stay. She tried to get me a place to stay once, okay? But I knew that I could go here and eat, I could go here to use the restroom, I could go to the casino and take a shower. And I know when I'm done, I can go home. I don't have to worry about all the responsibilities, bills, all the chaos inside the settlement. So that's why mainly a lot of them are industry. And this here shows them that, hey, we can help you on these responsibilities, but you gotta just have work.
How does that coordinated intake work? Before we get into that,
All right, this is going to be really uncomfortable for everybody, but there's a common theme that I've heard tonight, and I hear all the time, and it's they, them. Those guys out there, the homeless. And not, I'm going to get in your face right now and say, it's not them, it's us. Like any one of us right now could be in that situation.
Oh, yeah.
And, as a community, it's us. It's our fellow human beings, it's our community, it's our people, family. Like what, and it comes from my experience, I had to get in a situation, where I gave up my home to go live with the Salvation Army for a year, just to have the opportunity to help. And I didn't consider that homeless because, somebody was providing a place for me to stay. I had a roof over my head. But in doing that, I became a lot closer to the people that I was helping in that situation. And it wasn't them and it wasn't they, it was us. And, how do we create a disaster awareness in Las Vegas? For everybody, church groups, volunteer groups, to come in and do whatever it takes to help us out, to help solve the situation.
Alan Graham, who runs Mobile Loaves and Fishes out of Austin, Texas, one of my favorite things that he says, they have a 210-person community that they built to house homeless. And they have community gardens, they have all this wonderful stuff. And he said, as homeless, they've been broken from community. Whether the person never had a safety net or a social network, or they've just, because of addiction and bad choices, they've blown through their safety net. And so it's our responsibility to restore these people back to community. And it goes right into what you said about how do we restore people back into community.
But how do you get not jaded when you see the lady on the street corner holding the sign and a limo comes and picks her up and somebody takes her place and takes her sign?
What is that?
How do you become selective about really helping the people that need the help?
You know, in my outreach, what I do, I shared this with Kathy before, why are you holding that sign? Like, what do you need that you don't have enough money for? And let's try to get you to those services. And 9 times out of 10, if they don't have money to cover, you know, X, Y, or Z, or there's actually a kid on the strip that we encountered with Metro the other day that his family's put it up to it because mom and aunt are crackhead and they're sending out their crippled son to panhandle. So
Well, don't automatically assume every panhandler is homeless. There's plenty of panhandlers that are indoors, and there's plenty of homeless that are too proud to panhandle. They're working whatever their other hustle is.
I've got a lot of seniors that just their check doesn't get them through. And so at the end of the month they have to come out because they can't afford food or anything else.
I play disc golf and I go to the park and there's this guy that's there every week and he doesn't ask anybody for anything. He just kind of sits in the corner and he does his own thing. And you know, you go over and you offer him food. He's, no, I'm okay, man, I'm okay. And after you go, you know, after you see him for like a month, you know, every weekend in a row, he finally gets to know and knows that you're not trying to just come in to take over or do anything. You know, he knows that you're genuinely trying to help, and you see that wall of pride start to break down a little bit. And it's hard. It's really hard.
I think that what you brought up is another really good point is that people distrust our homeless clients. I mean, they just trust the people in our community. They're stigmatized. And it's a reason why we don't get as much support as other social issues. You know, I mean, you look at, you know, childhood cancer versus a homeless person, and who are people going to give the money to? And I think that it's because people don't trust the plight of the homeless.
I would take that one step further and say it's the last class of people it's okay to be prejudiced against. It's okay to discriminate against homeless in the community at large, not necessarily the people in this room, but you see it, bathrooms for customers only, people automatically assuming that homeless people are criminals or calling the police on them. It's not a crime to be homeless. It's not a crime to sleep outdoors. Back to your point, it's a crime for 3 million people, or 2 million people in the valley, 3 million in the state of Nevada. I believe there's 7,000 people a night unsheltered of those 35,000 people a year. If that was 35,000 one-year-old babies, we'd find a place to house them. The fact that they're older and more difficult to help is far more challenging, more easy to turn your back on.
But I will say that that's why I'm really glad we're having this conversation with the people in this room that we're having. We have people in this room that have never come to these conversations before, that are willing to listen and are willing to hear stories of people that are really experiencing life in shelters and life on the streets, and people that are willing to open their hearts and their minds a little bit and potentially volunteer and be advocates and provide resources. And I think that this room can be progressive, and it starts something progressive moving out. So I'm really excited to see how we can move forward because it's not okay.
Something we also haven't touched on, I feel like we lump in the single adult, you know, drunk on the corner, crazy lady screaming at nothing. Kathy, do you want to tell me a story about the park?
Yeah. So disclosure, I work with the city of Las Vegas. So that's what I do. And a big chunk of my job is about leveraging the city's resources so that we can more effectively address homelessness. So we're having this employee picnic, annual picnic over in Lorenzi Park. And there are food trucks and there are games and there are kids running around and they're dusty because they're rolling in the grass and we're all having a good time. And at 3 o'clock, the employees start gathering their kids up and all the kids are dusty because they've been running and playing. That's what you do in a park. And there are about 5 kids that no one's gathering up. And we're like, who's employee has left there? It turns out that these kids live in the park with their father in a car. But we don't notice them because they're hidden. They're a family. It's a family day. Did you get a hot dog, baby? Get in line, get a hot dog. No one is, right? They just look like kids. We don't know that they aren't our kids,
Right.
to your point.
Right.
They just look like kids. And all the kids are dusty and with grass stains on them because we're in the park. And we discovered that we had 5 different families living in that park in their cars, right? And they haven't hit rock bottom, so they're on this spot, right? Somebody got sick, somebody lost a job, and then they lost their home. They're living in their car, but they can't drive in front of the street because they don't have registration and insurance. And so in the daytime, when other people's kids are playing, they just let their kids play in the park, because that way they stay hidden. And we're going, wow. So we asked the outreach team to go back and get that family, because that's the one we knew about, and we discovered there are other families, and some of them work. So the families that don't have jobs watch the cars for the families who do have jobs, and they say, oh, so-and-so will be back at 5:30 because he doesn't get off until 5 o'clock, and they're literally leaning on the car like, don't tow the car. We're like, we're not going to tow the car, but there's kids out here. No, they're not. Why? Because CPS or
CPS coming in. Yeah.
takes your kids from you.
Yep.
So you're trying to keep your family together, you're trying to work, you're trying to hold the last bit of whatever together, and so you go places where you can stay hidden. And in a park where other people's dusty kids with grass stains on them are running and playing, you can hide because your kids can run and play there too. And so we have this hidden problem. They're not the stereotype drunk guy on the corner, crazy baby screaming into nothing. We have a huge uptick in homeless families, and what happens is they can afford the sweet, weeklies 2 or 3 weeks out of the month before the check runs out, and then they're back in the park, or the 2 older kids go stay with their friends because it's a sleepover, and they find ways to stay hidden. And so we don't really have a good handle on that, and the systems that are supposedly set up to help families, the families perceive that they do more. I'm not saying that they actually do more harm, I'm saying that families perceive that they do more harm. So if I'm a single mom, I've got a 16-year-old boy and a 9-year-old girl, and I go into the shelter, me and the 9-year-old girl can stay together, but the 16-year-old boy gets placed someplace else. Now, I don't know how many of y'all dealt with some 16-year-old boys lately. They're not necessarily mature enough to not be with their family, and your family's sort of torn apart. And so some families choose to live in their cars because different ages and different genders get treated differently by the system that's set up to help them. And we think what's efficient and what's cost effective and not what's meaningful and impactful for a family. And so they hide in plain sight. Those kids a bunch of kids were out there skateboarding. Some of those kids are homeless. We don't know. Not all kids are sagging and the holes in the knees because that's hot fashion. And some of those kids are homeless and they're hiding in plain sight right now.
I want to shift a little bit because I know that we had told you all you'd be out by 8 and we're past that. So there's a couple things that we really want to make sure we cover. I can give you a little bit of stats in regards to families and youth, but I also, Kathy did a good job of talking about family homelessness, parents and children. But we also have a lot of unaccompanied youth in our community that are homeless on their own. My husband works at the Nevada Partnership for Homeless Youth. We had a client, I remember the story, he had a client where the kid's mom had died when he was 9. And then when he was 14, his dad died suddenly. And he was all alone in the house, didn't even have a key to his own house. So he would leave the garage door open and go to school and come back, and go to school and come back. And then he had a dog, and one day he came back and somebody had robbed the whole house. It was just completely empty except for his dog. And he grabbed his mom's ashes off of the mantle, and he called ASPCA for his dog, and he was on the streets. And we have kids that are, that have been abandoned or they've been kicked out because the parents can't take care of, they ran out of, okay, we got 3 beds and you're the 4th one, so you gotta go. Or we have kids that are runaways, and runaways always get a really bad rap. Oh, they're bad kids, but if you're a kid and you are choosing to be homeless and you're running away, you're running from something. You're running from abuse, you're running from sexual abuse, you're running from bad things. So I want to make sure that we also talk a little bit and have that in your mind, because those kids are never going to be your stereotypical homeless person. They're never going to show you their homelessness. They're going to go to school and they're going to try and wear Nikes, and they're going to shower at their friend's house, and they're going to sleep somewhere on rooftops, places that you're never going to find them. They're hiding, and they're camouflaging themselves. So I wanted to make sure that I brought that to your attention as well. Our census last year found 197 families on the streets. Those are families with children. And we found 1,240 kids, including unaccompanied youth and kids, that were street homeless or in shelters. So I wanted to make sure you guys had those numbers.
So Stacy, when you say you found, what does that mean exactly?
The way that they do the census is we go out and we count people as they sleep. We look at cars, abandoned buildings. HUD has some calculations, some formulas that we use in order to extrapolate the different populations, and we also use surveys to extrapolate the different populations. So if I'm working the homeless census, I go out from between the hours of midnight and 5 a.m. and I'm giving a track, like Tropicana, Flamingo, Valley View to Decatur. And I'm supposed to drive up and down every single street, look behind all the dumpsters, drive down. West side you drive, on the east side, every time you walk.
You up, yeah.
I was also in Henderson you drive as well. But you're driving into business complexes and looking behind the dumpsters. You also look at, there's an RV parked on the side of the road. There's someone sleeping in there. That car has steamed windows, so you have to count as many cars that you see that you believe people are sleeping in. That abandoned building has all the windows broken out, but the chimneys making smoke, so someone's in that house, So you have to, we need about 500 to 1,000 volunteers to make it happen every year.
Everybody here's invited, right?
Yeah. But they take all of our calculations, all of our tallies from across all of southern Nevada. They even have helicopters that are out in the desert using infrared scanners of the bodies, like in the desert, to see if people are out there. They'll do the heat sensors. They have the police go out with ATVs out by Lake Mead and Red Rock to look for people. And so HUD takes all of our data and pretty much puts it into their formulas to come up with our numbers.
So when we say found them, we literally walked the streets.
Yes, and found them. And we also partnered with the school district to identify who was, this is heavy with children and families, who was identified as homeless on that day. So the Title I office through our Clark County School District gives us numbers from our Clark County School District, and then we,
I'm sorry, real quick. So I, as a teacher, can tell that some of the kids are homeless, or
the kids report it to teachers and counselors, and so those are marked up, and they're tracked through the Title I school office.
Students with free breakfast and lunches, the Title I.
Yeah, but not everyone with free breakfast and lunches.
Some schools are Title I.
Yeah.
We actually have a friend of ours who just came into town, and she got a job at Detweiler Elementary, which is a Title I school. Okay, there are kids in the school that are homeless, or their families are going through tough times, and they do get assistance. Okay, there's also programs that we know of. Saving Our Kids is a program, Serving Our Kids is a program that goes to these schools and gives these kids food for the weekends. Mm-hmm. Because everybody knows you get food when you come to school, but what happens on the weekend? Mm-hmm. What do you have, or when the school's out? These kids aren't getting, okay, so it's a nonprofit.
And the families really depend on that.
Right.
To get food.
Oh yeah, because I mean, it's bagged up, and it's not just, okay, here's a meal for Saturday, here's for Sunday. It's packages of meals that the whole family could actually share in some cases.
He provides food for our agency also.
Yes. Well, we actually did Renaissance reenactment, and one of the money that they make from all the stuff they do with Clark County that's how they give back to the community, is by giving to Serving Our Kids.
So one of the things when you were saying things, Martha said ahead. So I think for me, why these conversations are really important is because as we come together as a community to understand there's not an answer right? There's not one answer. And for every homeless person you see, there are about 4 or 5 factors that went into that process. And so we right now have systems that are one-offs. I'll feed you. Oh, where's the guy that told us I'm not sandwichless, I'm homeless?
Dave said that.
Hi, Dave. Most profound conversation, I've been sharing that with everyone. It was very important for us to understand that it's not a one-off. So the help, sometimes we're helping from our perspective. Right? We're giving them what we want to, or what makes us feel good about giving, rather than giving people what they need. And so we need to actually talk to folks, to just have a conversation with people and say, what is it that you need? And understand that this thing we call homelessness isn't a one-off, and there isn't a solution. Because some people are homeless because of mental illness, and some people are homeless because they're gay and their parent kicked them out. And some people are homeless because they're fleeing domestic violence, and some people are homeless because they lost their job, and some people are homeless because, right? So we could help the people who are homeless because they're mentally ill by fixing the mental health system. That's a whole nother ball of wax.
That was way too hard. Way too hard.
And so
Can you give me an easier problem to solve?
we throw our hands up and walk away for that reason, right? And so there's not an answer. So when we go to our spheres of influence, we should be saying, what do we do about mental health? What are we doing about high school dropouts? We know kids who drop out of high school are more likely to end up homeless. What are we doing about our graduation rate? What do we do? Blah, 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 blah. Like, don't walk out and say, oh man, I didn't get the answer when I went to that group, because I want you to stay in this conversation with people who are in the streets doing the work. And just because you don't get the answer doesn't mean there aren't some answers. If we treated this like a national emergency, we could come up with different responses. So I'm actually sitting down with our fire chief to have that very, like, I don't want a Katrina Sandy kind of response, but if we were to mobilize as if homelessness were a natural disaster, what would we do? Would we house everybody? Could we house 1,000 people?
Well, that's an interesting subject, because I was working in San Diego when we had, for the county of San Diego zoning, when we had tons of homes burned down by wildfires.
Right.
And something that's similar to this Homeless Connect on the 17th, and kind of what street outreach teams are doing, is crashing resources. We bring crisis teams to a single location and tackle all these different issues, because we say it's not a one-off. You can't work in a silo. There are people working on different causes. How do you bring that together collectively? And I think as government, that's something we often turn to government, because you guys have so many of the resources under one roof. It's sometimes a matter of vote a certain way and put some of the capital budget a certain way so that we can help these nonprofits and different groups. But I think that's what you do in emergency management, is you crash the resources and you bring several parties together who are working on these different issues.
Something interesting that came out of the last 25 cities meeting we had in LA with all the other cities. They actually told us, Las Vegas, you're never going to end homelessness. They said, you're never going to end homelessness because you don't have the community support like you need. And they said, the ones that are farther along than us, they said it's the private sector, it's the citizens. That's what you're missing in your plan. And until you get that, and this is, mind you, all the agencies are there basically singing Kumbaya from Las Vegas. They said it doesn't matter. Until you have the private sector, until you have the citizens that care, it's never going to happen.
But it has to do with finding the housing too. A long time ago, they did use the Moulin Rouge to try and put people in. And I went there, and it was terrible. It was really bad. There was more roaches running around. I mean, it was dirty. It was terrible. It's like, well, if you're going to try and help people, don't throw them into a garbage pit. You know, I mean, these are people, man. They're not, you know. I mean, come on. You know, so I mean, that's an idea, is to find other buildings with rooms that can be, you know, refurbished.
and people can use that instead of staying outside in the winter, because it gets cold. I like, my RV doesn't work real good, and I'm covered up with blankets when I'm in there in the winter. You know, and I got a couple of places I can go to, though. I have a couple of friends I go to, but when it gets real cold, I'll go in there, I'll go, hey man, I'm using your couch, you know, so, but yeah, there's a lot of people out there that don't have that opportunity. So, and the housing situation with a building like that, I mean, it was a great idea, but boy, that was really dumb. Nobody went to stay there.
If I could just say, so what Kathy referenced, what David said a couple years ago, I still remember that line too. He said this great line, kind of speaking on behalf of the homeless population. He said the homeless don't need more sandwiches. And he meant, you know, there's enough people out there that are feeding. No one's really going hungry on the street. What people really need is relationships, because the street is dangerous and it's scary and boring and you know, a lot of different things. John, you're a fan of comedy, so am I. George Carlin, you know, had this great line where he said, you know, this country's got a war on a lot of things. We've got a war on drugs, we've got a war on terrorism, and one thing we'll never have a war on is a war on homelessness. And he says, why not? Because there's no money in it. You know, there's no profit in homelessness. And that's true, and that's actually another theme that came up at that event a couple of years ago, was saying, if there is any solution to homelessness, it involves a little grace and a little charity. It involves someone reaching out and extending something that probably maybe someone else doesn't deserve. They didn't earn it, but that is necessary to get someone out, because it's a dark place and it takes help from somewhere else to get them out there.
Well, like you said, the community has to care, and it's the same thing with mental health. I work for a nonprofit that it's almost impossible to fundraise or get people to support you because it's not pretty. You can't give examples. No one wants to go out and say, yeah, they helped me. I was, you know, having a lot of mental health problems, and now they're cured, and I feel great. No one wants to brag about that because it's not popular. It's popular, you know, kids stuff is popular, diseases are popular. It's even more popular right now to be HIV positive than it is to have a mental health issue. And that used to be the complete opposite. We can't get people to donate money to save our souls because they don't want to go in and be part of that because it's not pretty. And the same thing with homelessness. Nobody wants to contribute to homelessness because it's not pretty. And I've lived in Las Vegas since 1972, and there are a lot of people with a lot of money here who are willing to give money, but they only give money to pretty things. And it's very unfortunate, and we just have to change our culture and change how we think and have different priorities on what's important and understand that homelessness and mental health, those all are really important to the sanity of our children and the way our community gets better. And if we don't fix those things, then we won't fix anything. It'll just keep cycling over and over and over. But it has to be attractive.
What's that to say, the popularity saying, the only way you get homeless is no, there's something bad happening. Okay? Yeah. If something bad's happened, well, homelessness, that. But, hey, if you want to know about us, we got the news, and we're on it.
The one self-supporting idea that I've had is, and because I have an RV and it uses a lot of fuel, was opening up, if I can find a big building, if I can get some background, backing for it, opening a big building and converting big vehicles like mine into natural gas, just like the city's doing all their vehicles, natural gas, buses and all the natural gas, and have people on the streets working, put people to work. And then they'd have a place and they'd have a job. Right. Because I wouldn't be asking for a sheriff's card. It's like, come on in here and help me do this job. I want to open a garage and I want to convert vehicles. And so I think that would be a great idea. Like Johnny Walker's and other places that rent RVs, man, they'd be turning over, they'd be rolling into vehicles to get them converted. People will rent the vehicle if they don't have to spend that much money in fuel. You know, the people will use them, that'll be, and the people that have them, like me, don't like driving them all over the place, but they use a lot of fuel. So natural gas is much better, it's much cheaper, and it's green. So, you know.
All right, well, we are really over on time, so we have one more comment, and Meredith and I wanted to give you a couple tangible next steps. I'm really excited that the conversation is really robust, and I definitely encourage you to have it, but I want to make sure that we close the group session because we did say that we'd be out by 8, and it's about 8:30. So Dave, did you have something to say, and then before we'll close it up?
Yeah, I know several of the audience here from a year and a half ago. I've been clean and sober off the street for 19, 20 months now. Meredith was very instrumental in getting me off my ass in the area that I lived, up by Zappos. But there's something that's a little different about me, perhaps. I had a willingness to do something different. And that willingness went to the core of my being. And I started reaching out to people like Meredith, like Tiger Todd over here. They became my mentors. West Care Drug and Alcohol Treatment Center was my home. They were my mentor. They were like a cast on a broken arm. It takes a while to heal. Well, that's what my life needed, a little while to heal. There's other people, Jimmy at Catholic Charities. These are people that I know personally. Officer Williams, Officer OG, and Officer Curtis. 3 people that came to my assistance. They actually came to visit me, not to throw me in jail again. They came out to make sure I was still alive. I still don't know them today on a first name basis. That was a year and a half ago. When I came in, don't worry, I'm not going to sing you a song, but my life was out of tune. It was terrible. Okay? I got this ukulele as a gift for trying to get off my ass and do something constructive with my life. It was a year and a half ago. I didn't come off the street as a little baby. I had a real successful career in life, but I did the outward bound journey, the adventure, the hero's journey, as Tiger likes to talk about, out and back again. Read Ulysses, Odyssey. He went out, and it was ugly. The Apostle Paul, it was ugly out there. But he had a purpose. And you Christians out here, what's your purpose? Get off your ass and do something. That's enough out of me. I'm in tune now, by the way.
In line with the do something, we wanted to give you guys a couple things. We have Project Homeless Connect coming up in a week and a half, November 17th. This is our biggest event of the year that we do for the homeless. Last year we had 150 organizations come together to serve everyone on site at Cashman Center. This is huge. We provide everything that we could possibly think of on site so that people aren't doing that bus trip across town for here and here and here. We'll have housing programs, we'll have mental health, we'll have medical, dental, and vision services. We have pet services for the animals of the homeless clients that we're serving. We have giveaways that include clothing and food and diapers for children. We'll have child care. We'll have the courts out there for everyone experiencing legal problems, so the judges will be able to come out and quash warrants and get tickets. You know, if you're sleeping in your car and you got a ticket for it and then you can't pay it because you're homeless, the judges will listen to those stories and generally let them go. It's not Amnesty Day, so I'm not promoting that. But we do have 3 courts on site. It does work. There you go. We will have job services on site. We're trying to have employers hiring on site. We will have social services on site doing financial assistance. We're actually trying to get EBT cards, SNAP cards issued on site, so I'm going to know about that in the next week, but we're going to be really close. We'll at least have the interview and the application process done by the end of the event, if not the full card. Legal resources, veteran resources, teen resources. We'll have different sections for each agency. For those families, we have child care subsidy programs. I mean, everything that we could possibly think of all under one roof. We need 500 volunteers to make this happen, so if you would like to get involved, definitely come out. If you don't have time to volunteer but you want a tour, definitely contact me. I would love to give you a tour and introduce you to some of our providers that you can get more involved with. You can go to our website, NevadaHomelessAlliance.org. There's a direct link to the Volunteer Center page. It's kind of confusing if you go to the United Way page I found out yesterday. So if you go to the NevadaHomelessAlliance.org website, you can learn more about getting involved, passing flyers out to people that you see, that you come in contact with, our donation wish list, anything. We are always looking for more job providers and housing providers. I don't care what the deadline was for booth applications, I'll take them up until the day of. We also have our homeless census coming up in January. We need people to go out and count with us because our homeless census numbers dictate how much money we get into our community from the federal government to fund these programs. And so if we can adequately count in the street how many people we see, the better we count, the more dollars that we get. So, and then Meredith has some.
Yeah, on the homeless.
And if we show a meaningful decrease, we actually get more money.
Yeah,
Believe it or not, I mean, that's required.
And if you want to ride with Stacy, if you want to walk, go with me. So these cards are up here. These, the City of Las Vegas created these. Thank you, Kathy. These are awesome. But so on one side, it's the basic government office resources. What I love on the back is the 24/7 services, so the feeding, the phone numbers. Sorry, Tim, your number's on here.
No,
I probably wouldn't have accepted the job if we knew that.
We get calls 24 hours.
Sorry, man. But so this is a great thing to hold on to, and you can give these to people, because what I find is sometimes people don't know where these resources are, that these are available, and this, especially the 24/7 one, this is really valuable to have this. So these are up here for you guys.
Karen, did you bring any with you?
I didn't bring any up. I'm trying to act like I'm not at work, but
I should have brought some.
Bring them by the pavilions and get around the streets, because we found out a big percentage of the newly homeless actually don't know where to go. And so if you can get them connected before they really hit rock bottom, they can get out of that downward
Last
spiral.
year, during the census, 50% of the people surveyed were experiencing homelessness for their first time. So if you're looking at that 7,500 number, about 3,700 had never been homeless before when they had surveyed. So that kind of gives you an idea of people not knowing where to go for resources that need to. And then on the back of the flyer, I also gave some kind of tips for getting involved. We asked that people think strategically, because you have limited time, you have limited resources. And so if you're going to give, think about something that will make a ripple effect. How are you going to, if you want to give out sandwiches, can you do it from the Rescue Mission campus where people are coming inside and they can connect with case managers while you're giving them the sandwich? So you're actually trying to connect people to services while you're doing things. So we gave you kind of some information on how to get involved and make that ripple effect.
Are there organizations where kids can get involved under the age of 10?
It's a harder one because of the liability. We do have agencies that sometimes they'll do service projects around packing lunches, so you're not doing direct contact with the clients, but you're actually able to put food baskets together. I know about a partnership with Homeless Youth. They do a street outreach every Friday. They will accept kids.
Serving our kids, they always need anybody to get up there.
Yeah, there's another one of these ladies, she's been, her third week, she's wanted to get involved. She's an organization, ministry called Cookie Monsters. Okay? And what she does is that has kids bake cookies, okay, and go out there and pass them out. But we've got parents who work over.
You can do the giving project with children, and that's on the back of your sheet, the contact information. They're actually doing one tomorrow, it's once a month generally, but for the month of November, they do two, because there's so many people that want to give around Thanksgiving.
That's run by Metro, so it's really safe.
Can I say one more thing? Okay, especially in winter time, if you know some particular homeless people that you get along with or talk to, a lot of times in winter time, the main thing they have trouble with is clothing. Not getting clothing, is getting clean. Okay? So if you find somebody that you used to see a lot, nothing wrong going to your services is tell them that, you know what, I'm going to clean this for you, and maybe tomorrow or sometime today, I'll come back and bring it on. Don't talk about the back one already.
Well, on that note, let's wrap it up.
On my last note, laundry cleaning, there was a lighthouse down, where Pastor Tiny's at and whatnot. They have a laundry cleaning day where you go get laundry done for free. They'll come out, they'll help you.
Oh, there's a place on Nellis, right near Sahara. It's the street is Cleveland. It's the 3rd Street north of Sahara. It's Cleveland. There's Grapevine Fellowship.
Grapevine.
That's a distribution center also.
And they'll help you.
It's a great place. It's actually the pastors there are actually it's a biker church, and the bikers are really great people. It's a church in the ring.
All right, thank you. Thank you all for coming. Thank you all for